What's up, guys? I just want to make a quick response video. I'm just chilling this afternoon, and I was watching a video that Sustainable Center put up. Ant was doing a response to this Australian guy's video, or maybe he's from New Zealand, but somewhere down there. Is Age of Sigmar a successful failure? And he's basically comparing Age of Sigmar to Warhammer Fantasy. So I'm assuming he's either a salty fantasy player, or he's at least sympathizes with salty fantasy players, which is understandable because, like, for the people who felt like they had to buy a completely brand new army, first of all, you don't. 2 out of the 3 masters have been won by fantasy battle models. One of them was Byron's mixed order list, which was mostly, if not all, elves. Just a mixed order. And then another one was Bone Splitters, which is all fantasy battle savage orcs that were just repackaged with a book. You didn't have to buy any new models. You just had to put them on round bases. And I don't remember the third one. But that right there is already 2 out of the 3. Oh, you only won 2 times? Yeah, out of 3. Like, Age of Sigmar is brand fucking new, dude. So that point is kind of void. And later on in the video, I have it paused right now at about 22 minutes in. He's got a picture of the Battle Force box of the KO with, like, you know, what the price is of the box, and then what the price is if you bought every kit in the box individually, versus the same loadout of, like, a 10, 15-year-old, like, Warhammer Fantasy Battles Dwarf Army box with, like, 62 models in it. Okay, cool. Individual kit prices minus the metal models, which you can't get from GW anymore. So that's kind of a weird point to make. Like, you're cutting off that huge, like, these models aren't in print anymore. And then, you know, Ant says something about the fact that these are brand new models. They're obviously more beautiful models than pretty much anything on the market, and yada, 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 or something like that. Anyways, that's not the point I want to make. The point at, like, 22-ish minutes in that he makes is that the demographic of people who are salty about Age of Sigmar because we're old fantasy battle players and we're 20-year-old, you know, we've been playing for 20 years and you betrayed us by throwing away our game and blah, 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 blah. Well, I already just debunked that. Like, no, you don't have to throw away your models. Two of the 3 world champions, basically, for the Grandmasters finals were fantasy battle models, or comprised mostly of fantasy battle models. They still work. You just have to know how to play. But the fact that most people don't know what they're talking about Age of Sigmar. Like, I'm a Stormcast player. I follow a lot of Stormcast forums. Don't always interact with them, but when I do, it's because I'm trying to make a point. But the point I'm trying to make in this video is that I see people, for instance, talking shit about, like, Paladors. And then I ask them, well, have you ever used them? No, but I mean, I've done the math. Okay, but Math Hammer and theory crafting, that only gets you so far. You have to play the game. That's the only way you're going to actually know if that model's good or not. You have to play the game. You have to play them with different builds. You have to play them in different armies. You have to play them against different armies. You have to play them in different scenarios to really get a grasp for their limits. Both on the low and the high end. But in this video, 22 minutes in, he says the demographic of people who are salty, you know, that fit his, you know, the people who are innately salty and don't like Age of Sigmar or hating on Age of Sigmar, are a minority compared to the people who are positive about Age of Sigmar. But he doesn't realize that he's made this point. And that's the overarching theme that I always see online anytime this really unfortunate, weird interaction occurs, where, like, this 40-year-old person who's been playing for 20 plus years is, like, sounding like my 15-year-old sister on Facebook because he can't play with the toys that he bought 20 years ago and he doesn't want to have to buy new toys. It's like, okay, you don't have to buy new toys. You're 40 plus years old. You're a grown-ass man. You don't have to buy our new toys. But we're not going to continue supporting a game that is so minuscule, the amount of people who care about this game, and the audience is so tiny in comparison to Age of Sigmar. The amount of people playing Age of Sigmar is more than Fantasy ever had, by a lot. So you can't really blame GW. I love Age of Sigmar, but I never played Fantasy, so I can't really talk. That's why, like, I get you're salty, but it's like at the end of the day, you don't have to play Age of Sigmar. Nobody's making you. But if you tried it, you'd understand a lot of the things that you're bitching about are sort of valid. Like, oh, how come a skink can hurt this, heavily armored, this tiny little thing should have a weapon scale so that way you can't hurt the big thing. Okay, I get that, but that's not what Age of Sigmar is about. Age of Sigmar is like it's not like, it is an objective game. Where did the objective go? Where did the objective land in this scenario? Whether it came out of the sky or whether it started turn 1, doesn't matter. Where is the objective? That's how you win the game. So, anything can hurt anything, potentially. Sure, why not? Because that's not what the game's about. The game is about mobility. The game is about getting the objective and then holding it. The game is about, okay, if something's on the objective, how do I get rid of it? Sure. Skinks aren't supposed to be the thing that gets rid of things off objectives. Skinks are mobile. They're supposed to jump around. They hit on like 5s and 6, wound on 6s. They do dick for damage anyways. Why are you bitching that they can touch you? Like, they're not going to do any damage to your, 2-up rerolling ones anyways. Why are you complaining? But I digress. The point that people don't understand about Age of Sigmar until you actually play it is that, especially with these last 3 books in 2018, the Maggotkin of Nurgle, the Legions of Nagash, and Daughters of Cain, and now presumably what's coming out in a week, my new army, the Ideneth Deepkin, they've seemed to realize it's really not that hard to make a decently close to balance book. And that's the main point that I want to touch on. The secret underlying success, I think, of Age of Sigmar are their Battletomes for each individual army. In fact, if somebody actually was just talking to me online within the past week about, I'm a new player, maybe he's an old player coming back, but anyways, he's new to Age of Sigmar, and he was asking about Wood Elves. And he asked, is that a good idea? Are they good? Like, I don't need him to be the most competitive thing. I just want him to be, I don't want him to be completely trash. And I said, and I left my 2 cents in the comments. And I said, well, this is my idea. And, Wood Elves are great, but, or Wanderers is what they are now. And I said, but and this is my advice to anybody I've ever talked to who's a new player. You got 2 ways to easily start Age of Sigmar, and it's the guaranteed to be the path of least resistance. You're going to have the easiest time having a good time if you take this advice. You don't have to take this advice. This is just my opinion. And I said, you buy a Start Collecting box, which is another thing. This Australian dude said that basically the prices are twice as much as they used to be for models. So Age of Sigmar is actually more expensive than Fantasy ever was. That's complete bullshit. Start collecting boxes. That's my answer to that. Like, that's my response. Start collecting boxes. If you're a Death player, you have 3 Start collecting boxes that have a fucking Mortark. You've got a Zombie Dragon, Terrorgeist. You've got what's the third one? The Blood Throne, Bloodseeker Palanquin, and not the Blood Throne, the Coven Throne, and the Mortis Engine. So you've got like all the big centerpiece type models except Nagash in a discount box for Death. That's just an example. So Age of Sigmar is actually cheaper than it's ever fucking been. And you ask anybody who's like a 20, 30-year fantasy vet who loves Age of Sigmar, cough, Warhammer Weekly Vince, cough, and they'll tell you, this is the closest thing to balance they've ever seen. I don't know if it's really possible or if it's really intended to ever have true balance in a war game. I don't. It's got dice, so I don't think that's. It's not really the point. But the Battletomes are the other thing that are like the Swiss Army knife, and that's what I think they've unlocked. Like the secret to success is that they just need to make a Battletome. Every army needs their own, Batman utility belt with their own special tools to deal with different problems. Like I said, how do I get over to that objective? Well, you have to have some sort of mobility. So every army has some sort of mobility rule. Whether it's a unit that's mobile, whether it's a special item that makes it mobile, whether it's a spell, whether it's a plant in a Nurgle tree that lets you run and charge, whether it's, summoning unit across the board out of the gravestone, or whether it's the deep striking harpies. You've got some sort of way to get across the board and capture that objective. Somebody's on my objective, or I need to hold this objective. Okay. Well, these new books, okay, what's the plethora of defensive regenerative capabilities of both Nurgle and Legions of Nagash? And there actually is a pretty decent little defensive buff build you can do with Daughters, too. There's actually a couple for holding objectives. I need to go kill something that's on an objective to steal it from somebody. Okay, well, here's the Rust Fang. Ignore, -1 save for the rest of the fucking game. Here's 20 snakes that are shooting their bows and dealing mortal wounds. They just blow you off the table from across the thing. Or here's 30 witch elves armed to the teeth with 1,000,000 attacks that are just going to blow you off the meat cleaver and just shredder you off the table. Blender, that's the word I'm looking for. And death, they just cast like Curse of Years and just keep, or whatever spells, or death has they have a lot more magic for their damage, but they have a lot of upfront melee damage too. They can just throw. It depends on what army they're building, and that's the unifying factor over the past couple of books. They are all versatile books. The books are Swiss Army knives for the faction. The models, look at the Aiden Athepkin and the Daughters of Cain. The War Scrolls aren't overly complicated, because they don't need to be. The books, look at the Snake Ladies. They don't even have rules for the fact that they have 6-foot-long snake tails coming out of their ass. They just stand and shoot. They're just 40mm bases that stand and poke you with spears or stand and shoot. And then on 6s or whatever, they do mortal wounds and yada yada yada. But that's it. The fact that they are Gorgons are not mentioned in their War Scroll for rules at all. But then you take battalions and they get the poison, and you do this and they get the spell, the spell that can give them the buff and the blah 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 blah. So they figured out that the books are really how you make the army diverse. The army is just, here's all the units. You have a couple tanky units, you have a couple, this unit is, defensive, and this unit can, have long range shooting, and this unit is good for, running around the board really fast, and this unit's a good buff, and this unit that. That's fine. And then when you get to the book, it really takes it to the next level. And that's the thing that people don't understand, is that it, more than theory crafting and more than Math Hammer, you have to buy the book, and you have to be dedicated. The people who are actually I'm all in, I'm jumping in the deep end, I'm full in this army. Insert army here. And the people who do that with an army with an updated Battletome, who's a new player, I think is the best way to go, personally, for Age of Sigmar. You're bound to have the best time that way, because the new updated Battletomes are pretty decently balanced. They all have weaknesses, but they all have strengths, and they all have a couple of things that are holy shit, that's overpowered as hell, that's so cool, that's so strong. They've all got a couple things that are a bit overtuned intentionally. Nagash and the Rust Fang and stuff like that. But that is the the thing that I would encourage everybody to really think about, whether you're playing Age of Sigmar, whether you hate Age of Sigmar, or anything. First of all, if you're hating on Age of Sigmar and you've never played it, your opinion means nothing to me or anybody I know, because you've never played it. So what the fuck do you know, anyways? Like, piss off. Go shit outside somewhere. Like, nobody cares. Quit crying. But with that little meander out of the way, I really do think it's a positive direction that we're going in Age of Sigmar. I'm really excited. I'm 100% in with the Adonat Deepkin. I'm super, super excited. The book is out in, well, I mean, technically the pre-order went out like yesterday. So a couple more days I'll have it in my hand, along with my Mathland, my Eidolon of Mathland, I'm going to do one of everything. To start off and just collect the army, and that's what I encourage new players to do, is don't listen to the people who are negative. There are people who are negative, and they are negative with good intention because they want certain problems, because the game's not perfect, and they want these certain problems to be addressed. That's fair. But there are people out there who are negative just for the sake of being negative, because they're salty or their feelings are hurt or whatever. But it's simply not true. Do not listen to the haters. Age of Sigmar is an amazing game. Age of Sigmar is an extremely easy game to learn, and it takes a very long time to master. That is fact. Talk to anybody who actually plays Age of Sigmar, and they will tell you that is 100% fact. So yeah, I would encourage any new player, that's where you would start. That's my main goal for this video, is to encourage people to play Age of Sigmar. If you're thinking about it and you're teeter-tottering it, do it. Here's what you need. You pick a new Battletome, and I'll list them out for you. The Battletomes that have what you need. Well, first of all, if you want to play any sort of match play, it doesn't have to be a tournament, but any sort of, like, even if it's just friendly competitive with your buddies and you just want to have like a semi-balanced type list, you want match play, you want every year they were going to release a General's Handbook. It's got all the rules you need they got a bunch of stuff for all the different ways to play Age of Sigmar. So no matter what, you want a General's Handbook every year. It's $25 for a paperback book once a year. I mean, what's your Amazon Prime account worth? What's your PlayStation Network or Xbox account worth? Netflix, that's $10-15 a month. Like, $25 a year is not that big a deal. I'm fine to pay that, and it's once a year, so that's like, there's no more additions. It's basically every July, August time they're going to release a General's Handbook for the next year, and that's going to be the new meta. That's going to be the new rules for the next year, and then they release an FAQ like 4 or 5 times a year, or an errata, a small errata FAQ after every book release, 2 or 3 weeks after every book release, and it's all current, and it's in the app, free app, the Age of Sigmar app. Every single war scroll in the game is free. It's never been easier for a new player to get in Age of Sigmar. You buy a Start Collecting box, and you pick a Battletome. Like I said, I'll list them out. Maybe I'll make a link in the description for every Battletome or whatever, or at least the list. But right here, you're going to want, for Grand Alliance Order, you got Stormcast Eternals, you've got Sylvaneth, you've got Caradron Overlords, you've got Fire Slayers, you've got Seraphon, you got Daughters of Cain, and you've got the Idoneth Deepkin, which, like I said, comes out in like actually 5 days, will be on the shelf. It's on pre-order today. But for Chaos, you've got, they're working their way through all the gods. We're presuming that this January will be Slaanesh, so Slaanesh is coming. He's already in the story, so we already know that Slaanesh will be coming eventually. I'm predicting January, because all 3 past Januaries they've released something for a new god. The first January was Khorne, or the first year was Khorne. Second year was Tzeentch, and then they just released Nurgle this year. So you've got Maggotkin of Nurgle, which anything Nurgle is in that book. Disciples of Tzeentch, again, anything Tzeentch, and Blades of Khorne, anything Khorne. And then they're going to do Host of Slaanesh, or maybe they'll change the name, but right now it's called Host of Slaanesh, and that'll be presumably coming out next year, this time next year. And that'll be everything Slaanesh. We're going to get new models and a new story and all kinds, because he's been gone from the story. He gorged himself on 1,000,000 elf souls, and he got too fat and he couldn't move. But now the elf souls broke free, and now he's actually free from his imprisonment. So he's coming back to the story. And that's the thing that people don't understand, the transition that Age of Sigmar made. They went from traditional fantasy, where it's just a bunch of dudes on foot, and cavalry, and order, rank, and file, to a high fantasy setting. And what that means is they went from Lord of the Rings to Greek mythology, where the deities and the demigods are actual playable characters on the table, and it's more grandiose and just, oh my god, there's a giant, release the Kraken. You can actually play with like that type of stuff. Like, it's larger than life, and it's intentional. Like, that is the world. It's supposed to be magic. Like, the world is encompassed, like entombed in magic. So like they are one and the same. Kind of like in Thor, your ancestors called it magic and you call it technology, but where I come from, it's one and the same. It's kind of like that with like this steampunk magic type stuff they have going on with some of the armies, but mostly it's just magic all around. Magic is the universal link, and there's no more just random dudes on foot. And even the ones that are dudes on foot are in way more dynamic poses. And for somebody who's an artist like me, I love that. I don't want to paint the same statue 100 times. I'll just go. I can just paint that a couple of times and just play chess. That kind of defeats the purpose of playing a war game if you're not like. That's why I love Palador. That's another reason I love Palador so much. Those are some of the greatest models ever. Anyways, but yeah, that's my take on the thing, is just don't listen to the haters. Age of Sigmar is a great game. It's a lot of fun. It's super easy to get into. It's for new players, for old players, for anybody. But that's the key, is that you have to realize it's a different setting than what you're used to if you're an old player, and it's a different game style than what you're used to. It's not about what army beats what army. It's about what army can take the objectives and play the scenario. Whatever the scenario rules are, that's how you win. Killing your opponent is only how you get points. And points are only a part of how you win, like kill points and stuff at tournaments and shit like that. But in the actual rules as written in General's Handbook 2018, the only way to win the scenario to get a major, it'll tell you how to get a major victory, is to win the scenario. You capture these objectives, yada yada yada, and then the only way to get a minor victory, then you go on kill points. So that's what you need. Pick a Battletome that you like. Oh, I was going to keep doing Battletomes, wasn't I? I got distracted. Sorry, somebody's texting me, and I got to go. So I'll finish this up real quick. Death is in the process of getting upgraded right now, and Destruction, we have heard rumors, is getting upgraded next year. But for Destruction, you've got Beastclaw Raiders, which are a bunch of mammoths. They're really cool. Big stompy monsters. Very low model count. Very easy to build and buy and transport and play. Not a whole lot of upkeep. Not a lot of models. Very good for beginners. Ironjaws, again, it's the orcs. It's the most popular out of Destruction. They are the old Ard boys. That's what they're called now, but they're the old Iron Orcs. And they basically turned that into a faction. They are very beginner friendly. They have a amazing cost value. Like, you can get an Ironjaw's armor. You can get well over 2,000 points, which is like the standard play, like standard list size is 2,000 points. And you can get well over 2,000 points for under $300 easily, plus a Battletome, very easily. eBay's your friend. And then the Bone Splitters, which Our Horde army, so if you like a lot of models, it's all the Savage Orcs. They made their own faction, they got their own book. No new models yet. Then in Death, it's just Legions of Nagash, but there's a bunch of different, like pseudo sub-factions inside the book. So you just buy the book and it has everything you need, and you choose which path you want to go down. And then there's rumored that there's going to be a Nighthaunt Stormcast release this summer to launch the new General's Handbook. So around June, July time, or July, August is the book. So somewhere around there will be a starter box of the new, and then next year, late this year or beginning of next year, will be the new Stormcast Chamber opening, and I don't know whatever time frame, I don't know, but we have seen pictures. There's the Stormcast. I think it's the Sacrosanct Chamber or maybe the Covenant Chamber, but whatever. But they look like very elfy aesthetic, but Stormcast and huge and badass with spears. And they look like they're either priests or mages. So if we get like a wizard Stormcast, that'd be pretty dope. There's rumors that it's could be the Ruination Chamber because of the anvil thingy, and that could be it looks similar to the anvil that's on Lord Ordinator, so it could be his chamber that's opening up, which would be the artillery chamber. So you'd get like magical cannons, like lightning cannons or whatever the hell Stormcast artillery looks like who knows. But yeah, Nighthaunt would be pretty cool if we get new models, because they did release at Adepticon that Nagash is getting back when it's new death models, and Nighthaunt obviously was not in Nagash book, but they have their allegiance abilities in General Handbook 2017. So it looks like we're getting for the Soul Wars. That sounds pretty awesome, and it's this new Chamber of Stormcast versus Nighthaunt. I want to paint Nighthaunt. I want new, and I love Stormcast. I'm a Stormcast player, so I'll take a new chamber any day of the week. That's the reason I got into Stormcast, was because they are the poster child, and instead of bitching about it, I just realized, I can buy an army that I will always, as long as it is called Age of Sigmar, I will always get new updates. I will always get new books. I will always get new toys. I don't have to worry about, when's my turn? My turn's every year. Or every year and a half. Like, I get new shit all the time. It's great. I love it. That's one of the main reasons I picked Stormcast. It's really beginner friendly. I love the knight aesthetic. Like, out of every fantasy aesthetic, like a knight would be my absolute favorite. And then Spartans are pretty dope too, and they can do both. My Stormcast are medieval Spartans, and they're awesome. The lore is decent. It's growing on me. I like it now that I actually have the new Battletome and can read up on it. It's actually a lot better than what I thought before. The models are pretty awesome. They're really easy to paint. They're really cheap, so they're really good for beginners. And they're really good on the table because they're the poster boys. They're never going to be shit because they're the poster boys. You're always going to be at least decently powered. So it really comes down to... And you have the most choices, so it comes down to how good of a general are you. And I like that, because it's all the weight's on my shoulders. It's not about, I lost because my list is weaker. No, I lost because I made the poor choice of bringing the weaker list. I have the tools to bring a stronger list. I just, for whatever reason, I chose Unit A instead of Unit B. So, stuff like that I'm really excited about. So yeah, I don't have a Death Army, and I don't have a Destruction Army. My Chaos Army is Disciples of Tzeentch. That's been slowly working up. I've got a couple of... I did a couple test models. I'm not going to be building up anytime soon. It's just anytime I'm bored over the next couple of years, I can just... Because I really like the Zangor aesthetic. So I did a Shaman the other day, and it turned out really nice. And I did some Kayak Acolytes, and they turned out nice. And I did some Zangors, which I sold off to a buddy, but I could easily do some more, and they turned out really nice, and they're a lot of fun to paint. So I actually have some Zangor Enlightened, which I'm going to be building the Skyfires in the mail right now because I got them for like $20 on eBay. So I was like, hell yeah, I'm going to take that. So in the background, that's what I got going. So that's an update with me. Let me know down in the comments what armies are you guys working on? What do you think of Ideneth? I'm actually probably going to turn this off and go record my next video, which is an update on my Deepkin.